Anyways, my name is Raymond Barrett. I'm the director of the grants team here at the Department of Family Support Services with the City of Chicago. I'm really just here to moderate and be the guy in the background doing some of the technical stuff. But if you're here to know more about the fiscal year 2023 Head Start, Early Head Start, Child Care Partnership and Expansion Cost of Living Adjustment Application Process, also known as the COLA application process. Today you will have three fantastic moderators, Sheree Johnson, who is the Manager of Family Support Programs in our Children's Services Division, Nicole Roberts, our Director of Accounting in our Finance Division, and Catherine Wiggins, our Grants Research Specialist here on the Grants team. And they're actually the ones talking today. Just to let you all know the agenda, we're gonna let them introduce themselves here in a second. And then we're gonna also then, Sheree's gonna walk us through a brief overview of the grant application process, followed by Nicole's going to walk us through the budget and fiscal portion of the application. And then Kathy's gonna close us out by talking about your governance approvals. And then we'll have obviously a chance for questions. I will be monitoring the chat the entire time. So if you have questions that you just feel like you cannot hold until the end, you can feel free to type it in the chat and I can either answer directly in the chat itself, or we might just hold it to the actual questions. That being said, Sheree, Nicole, and then Kathy, if you can just briefly introduce yourselves so everyone knows who they're listening to today.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sheree Johnson. I am the Manager of Program Operations and Quality here in our Children's Services Division of DFSS. I'll go ahead and toss it over to Kathy.
Welcome, everyone. This is Kathy Wiggins. I am in the Grants Department unit, and I am your Grants Research Specialist for Children's Services. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nicole Roberts, Director of Accounting here in DFSS Finance Division. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. And with that, I will pass it back over to Sheree.
Thank you, Raymond. So good afternoon once again. On behalf of DFSS Children's Services, our Deputy Commissioner, Saratha Burgess Burnett. Again, my name is Sheree Johnson, and we're going to talk through the application process. Okay, so what you're seeing on your screen here is just the overall structure of funding. At the very top, you can see that we have the United States Congress, which means this is federally funded programming, federal dollars, which means that this application process is under federal mandate. Those funds then funnel down to the Department of Health and Human Services through the Division of Administration for Children and Family Services and Office of Head Start, which then comes down over to DFSS, which is how we get the funding over to our delegate agency. So with that, again, reminding everyone that these are federal mandates, federal documents, which means that all components must be completed according to the instructions provided to us. So for the overview of the documents that you must submit for the application, your documents should communicate your program goals and overall design to the funder. It should describe your previous program impact through your prior goal achievement. It should also provide a roadmap for us so that we can see what your program has coming up in the upcoming grant year. Your application document should also propose your annual cost for your programming. That's essential. And it should also demonstrate your ability and capacity to carry out through the program. So here we have a general overview of the grant application process. That very first red circle that you see starting on the left is where we are as of today. We are training on the grant application process. Key dates to remember, according to this document, is on March 27th. We need all grant application documents submitted to us so that we can continue on with the review process so that we can adhere to our submission date. Okay, so we are striving for an internal approval date by April the 7th so that we can have everything finalized and submitted formally by April the 21st. So your two main key dates here are March 27th as well as April 7th, so that we can ensure that we are adhering to the application deadlines, and so that funding can, flow accordingly. So again, we want to make sure that you don't forget. So you can see on this document here that those due dates are listed here once again. It is essential that we have your attachment A1s as well as your wage study and surveys. It is essential that we have them by Monday, March 27th, 5 p.m. via email. All of that email information will be shared with you guys. You may have already received a lot of emails from us from our email address, but we'll ensure that you all have that information. And as well as your attachments C1s through C11. We need all of those documents by April the 7th, again, 5 p.m. via email. If you have any questions, you are welcome to drop those questions in the chat, and we will address those questions as we receive them. Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone. So on Monday, March 13th, this past Monday, you should have all received the funding packages from us. If anything is missing, please reach out as soon as possible so that we can get that to you. So in your packages, you should have had your funding letters, your COLA application instruction manual, the Excel attachment A1, which is your budget and budget narrative for your completion, the wage study instructions, as well as the Excel wage study document for your completion, your current approved FY23 initial grant budgets. Those are significant, as I know you all probably already have those on file, but they're just for your reference and ease to reference in case you are increasing any operating costs. You'll want to make sure that your beginning balances tie out to your approved grant application budgets. And then the attachment C for your completion as well. Some tips in completing your COLA application. In regards to your attachment A1, you want to make sure that your budget narrative reconciles to the personnel tab, the fringes and non-personnel tabs. If there's any discrepancy there, that will prolong the review process, and we'll have to send those back for corrections. You want to ensure that the itemized calculations in your budget narrative descriptions reconcile to the line item amounts. Our funder is very picky when it comes to this, and they will send back anything that is even a penny off. So we want to make sure that as you're itemizing your descriptions on your narrative, that any calculations in there tie to the penny, to your line item amounts. Confirm that you have completed all prompts within the budget narrative. Scan original documents only. Make sure that you're reviewing all of the documents prior to submission to ensure alignment. And please make sure that the documents are legible. If they are not legible, then the funder obviously won't be able to see them as well. Those will get rejected and sent back and requested for clear copies. All right, so in section 1, we have our attachment A, the COLA budget and budget narrative, as well as the wage study. For the attachment A1, please submit in Excel format only. That helps assist us in review of the document. Please use the following naming convention on the screen, which is also listed in the instruction manual as well. All right, so I will take over. Let's see. Raymond, if you can allow me to share my screen. And I'll walk you all through the attachments in section 1.
You should be able to now, Nicole. So you can look.
All right, can you all see my screen? All right, thanks, Raymond. So this is your budget and budget narrative, attachment A. Starting with your cover page, you'll want to complete all of your agency information in section A. Indicate your contact information here in section B, as well as your program type. The type of application. Indicate if you have any delinquent federal debt. And in this box here, the federal COLA funding should align with the allocation that you received. There is no required non-federal match that has again been waived for this FY23 year. And here is the inbox, the mailbox that you should submit your documents to. And this attachment is due by Monday, March 27th at close of business. On your detailed salaries tab, you'll want to fill in the employee name. The GABI title is a drop-down, so select the according GABI title there, and the GABI function will auto-populate. And then fill in the agency title here. Indicate your current rate per pay period or hour, the number of pay period or hours, and your current gross annualized salary will automatically populate. Indicate the amount of time spent per position on the fund that you are submitting the application for. And then your requested COLA amount will automatically populate as a 5.6% increase. Now, if you are allocating any amount other than 5.6%, you will want to make sure that you indicate your justification on the COLA certification tab. And then once you have completed adding all of your staff here, you will then go on to the personnel tab, and this total amount in column 9 should flow and reconcile to your total personnel on the personnel tab. Now, it is important that when you are completing the detailed salaries tab, that your agency title, if you have a staff that is listed as other, that the agency title is copied exactly on the personnel tab, so it'll carry over properly. So for the singing mailman, for example, let's say I forgot to indicate singing mailman 1, you'll see that their cost then disappears and my budget is not going to reconcile. And then, so you want to make sure that this personnel tab reconciles with by the total number of positions as well as the total personnel cost to your detailed salaries. So then that will properly flow over to your budget narrative. All right, so then moving on to the fringes and non-personnel, you want to complete all of the applicable sections. So COLA is first to be applied to your salaries and fringes, and then any remaining can be applied to increase your operating costs. Okay, and so then when you're done completing all of your budget tabs, you want to make sure that there's no errors here. So an error will populate if your budget amount does not reconcile to your total allocated budget listed on the cover page. It'll also populate if your admin exceeds the allowable 10%. All right, and then your SF 424 will automatically populate based on the information that you indicate on the cover page. So there's no changes needed by you here. You'll just want to make sure that the Board of Directors and the Parent Policy Committee chairperson signs. Your SF 424 will also automatically populate. You can use this as also as a checkpoint to make sure that your budget is reconciling to your budget narrative. And if you have any other sources of funds, you will complete the tab here. And moving on to your COLA budget narrative, you want to make sure that you are completing all of the required prompts. Changing, indicating your delegate agency name, your program type, any rationale for any variance other than the 5.6 increase to your staff can be entered here. This box for the increase to wages will automatically populate from your detailed salaries and personnel tab. And then in this section here, you want to indicate what your new entry rates will be for each position. And this section here should reconcile to your rates listed in your wage survey. Second section is fringe benefits and non-personnel increases. So your total amounts will automatically populate from the fringes and non-personnel tab. And you can use this as a checkpoint over here in columns 7 and 9. We'll show you the amount that carries over as well. And you want to update all of the prompts here. We already have the funder likes to see the rate rounded to 4%. So we automatically have that there. So if you're adding any calculations in these descriptions, please make sure that they reconcile to the penny to the total amount column. And for the remaining balances for supplies, you want to start here. Make sure that you provide as much information as possible as to your supplies. This is where your approved budget comes into play. You want to make sure that this ties to what your current approved budget is. This column is what your increased costs are. And then the FY23 COLA funds, these are the amounts that you are including in your COLA budget. This column should reconcile to your fringes and non-personnel tab. Any increases to your contractual partners, you want to make sure that the COLA that is being applied, this column here, ties to your fringes and non-personnel. And there's another checkpoint, as I mentioned earlier, where you can then reconcile that your total is accurate. Other cost section, similar to the supply section, you want to make sure that you're providing as much description as possible and indicating what your current approved budget cost is, what your total increased cost is, and then this column here, the COLA funds to be dedicated to this budget category should tie to your fringes and non-personnel tab. There is no non-federal match, so there's nothing that you need to complete here in this section. We've already included the language. And then this is your permanent COLA certification for any staff who is varying from the 5.6% permanent COLA. Please make sure that you indicate all of those employee names, positions, hourly rate, percentage of salaries being charged to the fund, and the reason for not receiving the minimum 5.6% COLA. All right, are there any questions so far?
Yes.
Sure.
My question is, when entering the COLA balances in for salaries, when you indicate 26 payrolls, we are 4 months into our current grant, so there's really only like 18 or maybe 16 payrolls left for this contract year. So will we be able to retroactively go back and report that December through March amount?
Yes, that is accurate. So this COLA is retro to December 1st. So we want to make sure that everything is annualized. on this
Okay.
application. Yes,
Okay.
and then so what happens is when your grant application budgets are approved, and the department will then initiate your contract award letters, and then you will submit budget revisions, City of Chicago budget revisions, and once those are approved, you then submit your retro colo voucher.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I will move on to the wage study. Can you all see that on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this is the wage study survey that is to be completed and also submitted on Monday, March 27th, along with your attachment A. And basically here, you'll just list all of your positions with the current entry rate per hour and the current ceiling rate per hour, along with the minimum education requirements. And so the entry rate does not mean your lowest paid staff member. It means per your pay scale, what is the lowest entry rate that you have. Is same thing with the ceiling rate. What is the highest rate on your pay scale? Not necessarily the highest in person currently paid on your payroll. And then over to the right, we have a reference to the CELS manual, the Chicago Early Learning Standards. And that includes all of the minimum salaries that are currently in place. And then that is also listed here in the CELS 2.0 tab as well. And then on the fringe benefits survey tab, you will indicate which type of fringe benefits that you offer, whether you offer full-time or part-time or both. And then in this section here is where you would indicate your number of paid holidays. And so if you'd have a pot of paid time off that's not necessarily specific to a certain type of leave, you would just indicate PTO. And that is it. Are there any questions on the survey? All right, thank you all for your time. We'll move on to, let's see, section 2. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Sheree. This is Kathy Wiggins, Grant Research Specialist for Children's Services. What we will do next is review the governance approval process. Governance approvals are under Section 2. Before we discuss the approval documents, let's talk about the shared governance mandated by the Head Start performance standards. All Head Start programs must adhere to Head Start Performance Standard 1301.1 through 3. This mandates that all Head Start programs must have a governing board and a parent policy committee established. Governance is shared between these two entities. Therefore, you must have approval from both your governing board and your PPC. Your governing board provides all oversight for your program and is responsible for all fiscal responsibilities for your program. Your PPC is most valuable and unique to Head Start and provides all input from parents on decision-making process. DFSS must also mirror this mandate in our governance establishment. So we have a board of directors, which is the CCUO, and Parent Policy Committee, CPPC, which representatives from your delegate agency parents are voted and sit upon this board. So let's talk about some key factors regarding governance approvals. If you have a Head Start and an Early Head Start program, you may submit one approval packet, with one exception. You have to make sure that all approval language is referenced for both programs in your approval documents. There's one exception to this, as Nicole mentioned most recently in the review of the SF 424. That document is unique to each program. So in your approval packet, you must submit an SF 424 for Head Start and an SF 424 for Early Head Start. This also denotes your program type and other identifying information, which Nicole reviewed and we'll look at shortly. It also has the final version of your budget dollar amount. Let's discuss Early Head Start CCP and Early Head Start expansion next. These are separate grants, and therefore they require that you must submit a separate approval packet for each. There's no combination of approval forms for Early Head Start Child Care Partnership or Early Head Start Expansion. You must submit a separate approval packet for each of the grants. Let's talk about some additional requirements of documents that you must submit in your approval packet. Your bylaws. Your bylaws are very important. This is the lens in which we review your approval documents. So you must submit bylaws for your board and bylaws for your Parent Policy Committee. This shows how your program operates. It denotes how a quorum is met. A quorum varies, and we will not know whether you have met a quorum or it is established unless through your bylaws. So the lens that we look at all your approval documents is through your bylaws. Are you showing your shared governance process in accordance with your bylaws, which shows the order in which things should be implemented within your program? Next, let's talk about the electronic approval process. Most of you are using this a lot, especially with virtual since COVID. So electronic approvals must be accompanied for both your board and PPC. If you're using this type of approval process and it is denoted in your bylaws that this is acceptable, then you must have copies of all approval emails for all board members that voted and all approval emails for all Parent Policy Committee members that voted. Next slide, please. Let's next talk about some tips for board and Parent Policy Committee approvals. We have a very short timeline this year. We have to turn around the documents in HSES, not just for all of our delegates, but for DFSS also. We must represent their approvals in HSES, upload them. So it is a very quick turnaround time. April 21st is our targeted deadline to make sure that everything is in Head Start Enterprise System. And for our delegate agencies, your target date for approval to ensure that they're submitted to us would be April 7th. That's a very quick turnaround since last year we got our notice on April 21st. This year it has to be submitted by April 21st, and we didn't receive the notice this year until March 6th. So we have a very quick turnaround time. So what options are available for you outside of your regular meeting if this occurs outside this COLA notice? What you can do is, if your bylaws permit, have a program or executive committee meeting. You can get approval by conference call or electronic vote. If none of these are admissible through your bylaws, then you can call an emergency meeting. Next slide, please. Your SF 424. Nicole talked about this form. It's very important. It's your dollar amount, your final budget. It is separate for each grant, one separate for Head Start, one separate for Early Head Start, no combination of this form. It is located in the tab in your A1 Excel sheet, budget from finance. You must print this document and make sure that it is dated and signed by both of your chairs, your policy committee chair and your board chair. And again, it should be the final version of your budget. Next slide. Let's look at this form. So it has your DUNS number. You have to ensure that that's there. That's the unique identifier that is for your individual organization. So your DUNS number has to be donated on here, indicated on here. In addition to that, you choose the type of or title of the grant, whether it's Early Head Start, CCP, or Early Head Start Expansion. You also on here indicate the population you're serving, where it's 3 to 5 or early 0 to 3. It also has a line in which the signature of your board chair and the signature of your PPC chair as required. And also you have to ensure that it is printed, preferably typed, the first and last name of the person that is your chair that is signing this document. Because as we all know, my penmanship isn't great and sometimes it's not clearly to be read. This document is very important. HSES will not take anything that's blurred. Everything has to be identifiable. So I cannot stress enough that you scan from an original. So then when we upload this to HSES, there's no question or concern and you get immediate approval. Next slide. So attachment C2, the certification of compensation compliance. Nicole talked about this. This is also in that Excel form. And this is signed by your board chair and dated. It also, we'll look at it shortly, has your program's name on it. This and the instruction is on page 11. It's pretty much simplified. It might be your board chair. Sometimes it's your CEO or it's your executive director, someone that can certify that no one person is going to receive funds under OHS in excess of the executive schedule, which is like 204,000. And so that has to be certified. As you can see on the form, delegate agency, sometimes that name is missing. That needs to be put on the form. The signature or the date may be missing. Dates are very critical. In addition to that, the name must be printed, first and last name, and indicate title. Next form. Attachment C3, statement of approval. So this form can be inserted in your letterhead as a template. This form is very important because what it does is set the precedent for dates. Your board chair and your PPC chair are indicating what date actually did your meeting occur. And so this aligns the first document that is going to be reviewed to ensure that your meeting occurred on this date. Your board chair and your PPC chair is signing the statement that you had your meeting on this date. And you also have to, for Head Start and Early Head Start, you can use the combination. For Early Head Start CCP, separate. Early Head Start Expansion, separate. You insert your agency's name and ensure that that date is critical. Make sure that it aligns all dates. Next slide, please. So we've pretty much gone over this. Combination Head Start, Early Head Start for the statement of approval is admissible. The instructions are on page 11. Early Head Start, CCP, and Early Head Start Expansion are separate grants, and therefore you must have a separate statement of approval form, a separate packet for submission. This can be put in your template and the signatures of your board chair. Next slide, please. So we're going to next look at your parent policy committee approval form. You have a board approval form. So this similar process for alignment is required for your board documents too. C4, your parent policy committee approval form, is on page 11 of your instruction guide, and their prompts that indicate how you should fill this out. We're going to look at it shortly, but most importantly, your agency names occurs, and then your quorum value. And your quorum value is determined by your bylaws. So your quorum value is the qualifying number or percentage that is defined in your bylaws that you must have in order to have approval of voting members. So when we look at this form, in the front part, it's Head Start, Early Head Start. If it's Early Head Start CCP or Early Head Start Expansion, that would be separate, only the combo for Head Start, Early Head Start. Again, the quorum value from your bylaws. What is that number? You take that directly out of your bylaws, and you have to indicate the number of total members. Again, in this right above the pretty name position, you see the approval date for the grant. This date should coincide with your C3 form, which is your statement of approval for your PPC. The only difference in this would be if you're doing an email vote, and then those votes are coming in, your vote went out on the 12th, an example, and your final approval email comes in on the 16th, then this date of the 16th should occur in this section, because that's when you were granted final approval. This form is most important because dates align, the number aligns. It also has to align and represent what occurs in your meeting minutes. So an example, if you have Mary Jones, Mary Johnson, Thomas White on your approval form, then in your meeting minutes, you have it listed a different way, then that takes extra time in the approval process. If in your meeting minutes you have White, Johnson, Black, and on by last name, and you have their first name printed, if you have the same listing on your approval form, then that alignment can occur quickly, and you're able to review this document and show that there's seamless governance approval that occurred. In addition to that, if your meeting occurred during Zoom or Teams, this should be consistent and indicated in the signature line. It should also be aligning with your parent policy committee meeting minutes, which we will review shortly. In addition to that, if you have parents that, according to your quorum, are coming from different sites, you have to have 5 different or 3 different sites listed along with that parent's name in your meeting minutes. In parentheses or asterisks, you can indicate what sites those individuals are from, and also indicate that on your approval form. So it's seamless. Each piece and each document aligns and it represents the same story. It shows how your approval process was granted by your PPC. The same example would be for your board. What oftentimes happens too is that individuals may have a surname, they may have printed AJ Smith, and then the signature may be Alice Martinez. And then in your meeting minutes, you may have Alice Martinez. Well, we don't know who that person is that voted, whether they're two people with a similar name. It doesn't authenticate your vote. So in parentheses, you could have Smith Martinez, Alice Smith Martinez, or you could do that by asterisk. Your parent policy committee approval form should mirror what is recorded in your meeting, in your parent policy committee meeting minutes. Next slide, please. So let's talk about your parent policy committee approval minutes. Okay, so your minutes, they provide a summary written of your voting process. It should indicate how your quorum was established. It should indicate if you have any questions or discussion that occurred and took place, how many members voted, who approved, abstained, or voted against. In addition to that, you should have approval language, indicate who motioned, who seconded, what that approval looked like, were all in favor or not. And it must also mirror what is in your parent policy committee approval form. It must align with that. In count and name and number. So just keep thinking alignment, seamless. In addition to that, if your meeting occurs through conference call or email votes, you must have a summary, electronic summary, and you have to include all approval emails supporting documents and ensure that the approval emails for each member that voted, that they're clear, legible, visible to the naked eye, and also that you have the time and the date in that email and the person's particular vote. Next slide, please. So we started with the bylaws, and bylaws are very important because this is the lens in which we're looking at your governance process. Your bylaws let us know your quorum value. It lets us know if you have representatives, community representatives, and whether they have the option to vote. It lets us know how you can meet, if you can meet Zoom, whether you can meet virtually or in person, or hybrid is possible. Your quorum defines how your PPC operates. And this is the lens that we look upon, not anything that we invent or what Head Start says. Head Start says you have to have the shared governance, but how your PPC is rolled out and how your board is established are based upon individual bylaws. Next slide, please. So, board approval form, we talked about this similar when we talked about the PPC approval form. Same things to be completed. The prompt at the top, make sure you have your agency information, and again, your quorum information. The quorum information is not about the number of people that are there. The quorum is actually the number or quantity that is defined in your bylaws of members that have to be present in order to have an official vote of approval. Next form. Again, the board approval form. Similar to, you see the identical form that was present in the PPC. The only thing is board is indicated. Again, combination of Head Start, early Head Start is admissible. But for Early Head Start CCP and Early Head Start expansion, has to be separate. You have to denote what number is your quorum value, what that quantity is, and indicate the total number of members. Again, most important tip is that your board approval form, along with your PPC approval form, aligns with your meeting minutes. If you list the number of members that voted in the similar manner, if you indicate the process in which they voted is consistent between your forms, and that you have designated the correct approval date, that it reflects what is noted in your C3 statement of approval by your board chair. Other than that, the only difference would be if you have email vote that went out, and that would be your last approval would be granted by the date of the last email that you received. Next slide. Again, redundancy, but alignment. So your board approval minutes, just like your PPC approval minutes, document your voting process, how that occurred, how your quorum was established, the discussion that took place, how people voted must be in their approval language. All approval emails must be accompanied with your document. In addition to that, it's in the template. There's no template for your minutes for either the board or the PPC, that you would, do this on letterhead or just provide the discussion. The instructions for this is on page 12. Next slide. Again, your bylaws are critical with your board. Just as well as your PPC, is the lens in which we review your documents by. It's the lens that says how you should operate and what is admissible. And so that is a lens in which we will review all your approval emails. And if everything aligns, then it will be a seamless approval process. Next slide. Attachment C10. Documentation of delegation of board responsibilities, if applicable. We have very few delegates that actually have delegation of board responsibility or resolution. If you are, you know who you are, and we do too. But you have to ensure that all the documents and copies of the policy and resolutions that delegate responsibility and authority are submitted with your application. Next slide. So, some tips. Verify your budget. That was from Nicole. Ensure about your itemized calculations in your budget narrative description. Make sure you reconcile the line items, amounts. Any small discrepancies are large to the funder, and so they will be kicked back. Confirm that you have completed all props within your budget narrative. Scan original documents only. Review all documents prior to submission to ensure alignment. Documents must be legible. If you can barely read them, OHS will not read them, and then we will not be able to submit them. This is Kathy Wiggins. If you have any questions, you can put them in chat and we can address them. I thank you for your time and also for your patience as we work through the grant process, because it's a lot of going back and forth, and everybody has just been so wonderful in responding. And so for this, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, so once again, if you have questions on your governance approvals, you can definitely reach out to Kathy or myself. Our contact information is here. We also recorded this session and we'll share out the slides. So you'll definitely get it. Before we get into questions, just reemphasize once again the two major deadlines. I'll actually scroll way back up here to show them again. Here we go. So all your financial things are due on Monday, March 27th, and all the board items are due on April 7th. So please get them in on those times. But this is a time, I think we had some questions via chat and some via voice. So if you would like to ask your question, you can do so for right now. And yes, so while people are waiting, some other reminders. Yes, everyone should be getting charged the 5.6% increase. If you have someone who, for some reason, is getting higher, or if there's any reason why it wouldn't be, please make sure you use that COLA certification to provide the justification on it. But yes, people are supposed to be receiving that COLA increase. I don't know if there's anything else, Nicole, on that you want to just mention from previous applications.
Just again to ensure that all of your detail and your justifications ties to the penny. I think that is one of the biggest points of feedback we receive, or insufficient detail, not enough detail or description provided. So if you could just please be as thorough as possible and just reconcile, we greatly appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay. Well, we're definitely
Mute.
still.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that,
Page.
to the page where's the questions, where in case there's a question, because you guys provided telephone numbers.
Yeah, so let me do both of them.
Thank
If it
you.
if it is financial related, and once again, we'll send these around, but Nicole or Sharon on this call, their emails are right here. That's really if you're focused on a fiscal aspect. Now, as you all know, sometimes we have other people that reach out as well, but you can definitely do that. You can also do the COLA grant app email, which you all have been receiving some communication from in general.
Just the
And
other
then if
one.
it's governance related,
Jack, put it over there.
Just that one.
here we go. You can also reach out to these people. Kathy is definitely governance connoisseur, and I can definitely also support on that and just help answer questions in general for you all. So any of those individuals you can definitely reach out to.
Thank you, I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Any other questions? If you need anything, you can reach out to any of us. Otherwise, we will definitely be talking to everyone throughout this next couple weeks. Really appreciate y'all's support. It is a lot. It takes a lot to be able to go through these cool applications. Shortly, we will provide you the recording of this via our social medias and the PowerPoint slides. And definitely, yeah, just reach out to us if you need anything. Wish you all the best for your afternoon, and we'll talk to you all shortly.
Thanks, everyone.